Welcome to Offscreen. This week we're reading ELI by David Chirchirillo. Having moved into a clean house to treat his autoimmune disorder, 11-year-old Eli begins to believe that the house is haunted. Unable to leave, Eli soon realizes that the house and the doctor who runs it are more sinister than they appear. So David
I think it's like Chirchirillo.
Yeah, I'm not good at pronouncing anything, so hopefully no one takes offense to...
We don't mean to make fun of him.
Well, we're not making fun of him. I'm not, at least. I'm just incapable of saying stuff.
Yeah.
I can barely speak.
So, no hard feelings.
Anyways, he went to Columbia College in Chicago. He has written a movie called Cheap Thrills, which was like a horror comedy type thing back in 2013. Looks like he has a few other credits.
He wrote one of the segments in The ABCs of Death 2.
Okay,
apparently.
Cool. So that's like a horror anthology.
Yeah.
Looks like he has something coming up called Dances with Werewolves.
Good title.
Yeah. And this screenplay, Eli, topped the 2015 Blood List, which is like a list of...
It's like the Blacklist specifically for horror.
Right, exactly.
But it was also on the Blacklist.
Yeah. But it was number one overall on the Blood List. So good for it on both fronts.
Yeah.
And it's a horror film.
Yeah.
You want to do the synopsis?
Yeah, keep it simple, I guess. So, due to a genetic disorder with his immune system, 11-year-old Eli is forced to live his life in a kind of hazmat suit which protects him against germs. That is until his parents bring him to see Dr. Horn. She runs a clean house in the Colorado countryside and has cured several others just like Eli. The whole family moves in with the doctor, but it's not long after he receives the first in a series of injections that Eli begins to see things. First a boy about his age, and then a woman who nearly tricks him into going outside. It's enough to make him think the place is haunted. Eli's fears are only bolstered by the neighbor girl named Haley, who comes to visit him from the other side of his bedroom window. With her encouragement, Eli sneaks into Dr. Horn's office, where he finds the files of some of her past patients, including a boy named Perry who looks just like one of the ghosts he's been seeing. Now convinced, Eli goes on to discover a secret chamber in the house, which holds the remains not only of Perry, but all of the doctor's past victims. Only then does Eli realize just how dirty it is in there, and yet he has no trouble breathing. Just as it dawns on him, the truth, that he's not sick at all, that his parents have been lying to him, Dr. Horn appears to give him his final treatment. This time she wields a Bible, casting holy water upon him, burning his skin. It's an exorcism. Eli is possessed, and now that he knows it, he summons the evil inside of him to fight back. He kills Dr. Horn with a snap of the neck, then burns the house down with his parents trapped inside. Eli walks from the wreckage to find Haley waiting outside. She's just like him. Together with the ghosts, they set out to wreak their havoc upon the world.
Cool.
The ghosts are sort of like their minions, it turns out, I guess, right?
Yeah, they kind of aided Eli along his path of discovery.
Right.
Kind of telling him where to go.
So, what do you think overall?
I mean, I didn't love it. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, even just your hesitation when I asked you what you thought was surprising to me. I thought this would be a really divisive script, like either you love it or you hate it sort of thing.
Oh, really?
And I loved it. I thought it was like really fun to read.
No, I found it to be a pretty quick read. I mean that in a good way. Like, it kept my attention.
Uh-huh.
The writing was good, or solid at least. But
it's just
I'm more just curious to see what you...
How could you not be more opinionated about that insane ending? Like, just the way it unravels is so satisfying to me that I was really impressed by it. Because I wish more writers would, like, take that risk. And it kind of made me realize, especially when you're just writing a script, you don't have a deal made already. You don't know that it's going to be a movie yet. You might as well go crazy with it. And, like, who cares if it's too extreme for people to make? If It could still be enough to like really get you noticed and get you another job writing something else. So you might as well like
Definitely
push it. I don't know.
No,
push
I
it
agree.
to the limit.
Well, I mean, I think you should write what's like what you want to write. You know.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it's
just feel
probably
like
a fool's errand tailoring your writing to what you feel the expectations of other people are.
yeah, and I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing, and they end up playing it safe for that reason.
Well, you're playing it safe or you're chasing trends that are, like, if you're writing for someone else, you just need to write for yourself, I think, ultimately, because there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
I didn't find it that, I don't know. Like, it wasn't devastating to me because it didn't really, the relationships between the characters here weren't moving independently.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It could have.
Like, structurally, I get what you're saying. The fact that the parents maybe don't, or I guess they still do have good intentions for the kid. They want to save him, but that they're willing to.
I think they pretty
lie
much
to him
want to
forever.
Well,
I don't think they wanted to kill him.
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to kill him. They could have just done that. Right? They could have just done that themselves. They could have just shot him in the face or something.
Yeah. And the first 3 treatments were with the intent to
try and cure him.
But when they lock him in that scary chamber, sure.
Yeah, they've given up at that point.
But I don't think it was set up well enough beforehand to maximize the impact of that.
Yeah, I agree that like emotionally it wasn't all the way there. You weren't really that broken up about it. When his parents betray him like that, it could have been a little bit more heartbreaking.
Sure.
But it was enough to me. Like there was enough setup and there was enough display of affection by the parents for their son that it was still very surprising and satisfying to me when it.
Sure. No, I think there was. The parents seemed like very reasonable, good people.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else did you like about it? Because we should do that first, right?
Yeah, I guess so. We were just kind of on a tear there, but I thought there was some good creepy stuff going on here. There were some really cool moments, like early on, especially where you're just starting to get a glimpse of these ghosts. Like when he's first anesthetized for his like first injection, he's going under and he's about to fall asleep, and he's kind of on his stomach on the table looking at this. It's like a glass case full of medical supplies or something, and just at the last moment he sees another person in the reflection, and then he falls asleep. That was really cool. Just little moments like that, kind of like what I was saying last week with that script, the Max Landis script, Deeper. There were just some cool like subtle things, which there were also the more like jump scare type of things here too, or just more like visceral, which again I don't think those work as well like in a script, especially when you're reading it, but I think they would be fine. They would work in the movie. But the stuff that I really liked was the little creepy, subtle, or things that happened in passing. Like another one I thought was really good at the end when they are trying to drag him into the doctor's office to give him his last treatment. He's being pulled down the hallway, and he gets a glimpse into one of the rooms down the hall, and there's a ghost trying to like point at something and show him where he needs to go to figure out what's happening. And all you see is just this creepy ghost kid pointing to something that we can't see. For some reason, that was super creepy to me. Mm-hmm. The idea that this ghost is like just pointing at something off screen that we just can't quite see, and it's bad. It's like even the ghost doesn't want to go over there. It's just like, just look over there. That was really cool. There were a lot of creepy little touches like that.
I thought the introduction to Haley when they're driving through the car or driving in the car to first get to the home, and off to like the side of the street they see Haley, and Haley immediately catches Eli's eye. Mm-hmm. Like it plays like, oh, he's like a 11-year-old boy. He might just be starting to be into girls.
Be into that, yeah.
But it turns out there's like more significance to it because
that deep demonic connection.
Right, exactly.
I wanted to say about Haley too that she was a really good sort of foil to Eli, in the sense that Eli is always super sheltered. He has to stay inside. He can't get in contact with any germs. And Haley, on the other hand, is always seen outside. She's like playing in the mud. She camps outside of his window. She has this gross moment where she has a mosquito on her arm. Huh. Have you ever heard of this? I never heard of this. there's a mosquito sucking on her arm, and she like tenses up her muscle, and apparently that traps the mosquito's like
beak, for lack of a
what
better
do you
word?
call it? Yeah, it traps the mosquito in her arm, and it just is forced to keep sucking her blood until it bursts. That I'd never heard of that, but apparently it's like an urban legend type thing or something. It's not true. I looked it up.
No.
That you
Oh,
cannot actually do that.
really?
But it was appropriately gross.
Yeah.
As a way of contrasting her to Eli.
Right. Who Eli, at the beginning of the screenplay, is like terrified of sunlight, of outside.
Yeah.
Of even running water, just because he's been conditioned to believe that all of it will kill him.
Yeah. I think that was cool, and it worked well. Like, they do that, it seems like, in a lot of horror movies where the main character is just like a naturally, like, easily scared person.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of annoying to me most of the time, but it made sense here. It made a lot more sense, not only because he was a kid, and kids are, I would say, more easily scared in general, but obviously because of his condition and the way he's been raised, he's terrified of it, like the outside world. So that was a lot.
It's like a natural part of the central conceit of the story.
Yeah, it made a lot more sense in this case.
Definitely.
I also thought it was nice and ominous the way they said that they were trying to explain Dr. Horn's treatment, and that she is trying to isolate some kind of gene or whatever to help create this drug that she's going to administer to him so that his body can actually start to produce the antibodies or whatever that he lacks. But she says that when she does it, his body is going to reject it. She like knows that going in. It's like, yeah, his body's going to reject it, but I'm going to try and like trick it into accepting it. And there was something really like unnatural sounding about that and just wrong. It's like, whoa, okay, his body clearly doesn't want this treatment. It's not good for him.
Well, but when you get like an organ transplant too, like oftentimes the body will reject that.
That can happen, yeah, I guess. But I don't know. It was, I felt really ominous and cool.
Yeah.
Who knows what the actual explanation is in terms of like him being a demon? But that was her explanation to Eli at the time. I had an interesting point I wanted to make about the ghosts.
Yeah.
So there was this really, for me, important moment, even though it was a really small moment. So this is on page 53. Basically, it's just Eli in bed. He's trying to go to sleep, and it says, from the bottom of the bed frame, and without a decibel of sound, 3 ghosts, gaunt and horrific, slither their way towards Eli's bed on their bellies. And then it goes on to describe them, but the point is that Eli doesn't actually see these at the time. He, I think, is looking at a picture. Yeah, he's looking at a picture of him with his parents.
And his family dog.
Right. And doesn't notice these ghosts, but we do. And to me, that raised a really interesting, like, metaphysical sort of question about if these were, hypothetically, if these were just in Eli's head, these ghosts, if it was purely a psychological thing, figment of his imagination, then for them to be seen at all, they would have to be seen by him. So the fact that in that moment, he didn't see them, but we did, to me, is, in a way, it's like a sly way of proving that these are real. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, it does. But isn't that countered by the fact that the parents can't see them? Because at the end, there's a whole shit ton of ghosts.
Oh, you're right. They actually did make a point of that. Yeah. The ghosts are much more on Eli's side and helping him out and opening doors and closing them as he's running away from his parents and stuff. And they show that from the parents' point of view, it's just like stuff moving on its own.
Yeah.
But Eli can see that it's the ghost doing it. Okay. That's okay, I guess, because they still exist. It's not like it's a figment of Eli's imagination.
It's not a figment of his imagination, but...
So, I
what
guess...
you're talking about is the perspective of the camera?
No, not really. I just meant
camera?
that, like, in that scene on 53, where we see the ghosts, even though Eli doesn't...
That implies...
To me, that, implies that they are real and they exist apart from just Eli's and his imagination. It's not like a subjective thing.
Right.
Well, maybe you can also explain to me that this is not about like the whole perspective question, but why is it that in these scary movies, half the time it seems like it turns out that the ghosts, they really just are trying to help, or really they just need our help to like resolve some unfinished business or whatever.
That was kind of cool.
But like my point is, why, if that's the case, why are they doing all this creepy stuff all the time?
That's true.
Like,
Why do they have to?
there's one part where this ghost is climbing on the ceiling. It's like, I guess later you find out it was kind of trying to get him to look somewhere upstairs, but like, just point or something. Like, crawling on the ceiling is super creepy, and it kind of makes it seem like you want to kill him or
Yeah.
you're trying to scare him. How is that getting across the message that you are helping?
I guess maybe there's nothing inherently about being on the ceiling that is scary, you know? It's just the fact that it's a ghost on the ceiling.
I would beg to differ.
If you saw your cat Poser on the ceiling, you'd be like, well, that'd be weird, because how would Poser get on the ceiling? But if Poser were up there, you wouldn't say, oh, that's scary.
I would
You'd
be
be
a
like-
little freaked out by that.
You'd be like, Poser, you're walking on the ceiling. That's pretty cool.
No, I would think I had a,
Well,
a demon cat.
I mean, ceiling, obviously, like gravity and shit. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
But it's dumb. It's like, if these ghosts just are trying to help, they have a really bad way of showing it.
Yeah.
They're being super
Is it-
scary.
is
Like,
it
they're
super
slithering
common?
they're slithering up his bed and stuff. I was thinking also like the Sixth Sense,
Maybe
right?
they can't help but slither. Like, they don't,
What?
they can't, like, jaunt. They can't, like, skip
They
or
were walking
gallop.
at other times.
Were they?
Yeah, right?
I
Like
don't
that
know.
kid in the hall at the beginning. Was just walking down the hall.
Maybe.
But they can't talk, I guess, so that's one thing. They have to, like, just
Yeah,
gesture.
but here's... I gave it props, or that's something I liked about it, that the ghosts weren't the scary ones, really, ultimately. And
Right.
I came to understand that. It was
Yeah.
all the real-life living humans.
Yeah.
And maybe that's pretty common. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head where that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know about that particular case. I don't know.
I mean, there's certainly things where the ghosts need to be, like, help or whatever.
Yeah.
Or,
I really want
but
to...
if the ghosts could help them, why didn't they just help them a lot more instead of, like, making vague allusions?
Maybe it's like in the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, where it's like they really have to focus their energy to be able to actually move anything. It takes a lot of effort.
Oh, well, maybe. And why can the ghosts help him, but Haley can't?
What do you mean?
Like at the
Haley with like assuming Haley has these demonic powers too.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's like a test.
Well, there was a sort of dumb line at the end that Haley was like, "Yeah, you needed to come to the realization yourself. That's like one of the rules."
But
kinda.
he didn't, and I think that's my biggest problem with the screenplay is that it seems a little too easy for Eli.
Really?
Yeah, like he just winds up and sees that he just like is scared by the ghosts, and then he finds the code to Horn's office. Then later the ghosts are like directing him to every place that he needs to be. Ultimately, like pointing.
Yeah, well, literally one of the ghosts grabs his hand and pulls it towards where he needs to look.
He wouldn't have figured out the false bottom thing without the ghost literally pulling his hand beyond the false bottom thing in the drawer.
Well, I'm okay with that. I just think it was a lazy explanation for Haley at the end when she was like, "Oh, I wasn't allowed to help you. You needed to come to the realization yourself." They should have just had Haley help in some other way, and then
or explained why Haley can't help, but the ghosts can.
Yeah. She did help a little bit, just in the sense that she kind of encouraged him to go looking, and she was the one that kind of helped reinforce his beliefs that there was something else going on here. So she believed
a little
bit,
but in a way that like a friend would, like an 11-year-old girl would.
I guess.
I don't know, just between the code being crudely written in wood, like on his bed, and the ghost directing him to the cabinet and then directing him to her bedroom.
But I see your point. But I liked those sort of, even if they were a little facile. Is that how you say it? Facile?
Yeah.
The clues. It felt cool to me in a way that, like, maybe this is partly because I played a lot of like puzzle video games growing up, but I really love it whenever a script can sort of gamify the plot to the point where even if it seems really obvious and explicit, you have these moments where you've just found a clue and now you know the next step to the puzzle. That was what the code was to me. He finds this code scratched in the bottom of his bed frame, and that's the code for the lock on the door to the doctor's office. And so stuff like that, it makes me feel like, maybe in a really superficial way, it makes me feel like we're making progress in the story, and I like that. Also, there was a point that really reminded me of a video game type thing where he's trying to pick the lock on the desk in Dr. Horn's office, and there's just like a glimmer of light on this letter opener on her desk, which he suddenly realizes, oh, I can use that to pick the lock.
Yeah.
Which remarkably actually works. I don't know how
Yeah,
you can
that's
pick a lock
part of
with
my-
a letter
that's part of
opener.
my-
But that's such a video game thing too, where there'll just be like something in the room that glimmers, and you're like, oh, I guess I need to go
the
pick
hero
that up.
prop will suddenly be like illuminated or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. It was kind of
But yeah, like
endearing
that
to
was
me.
pretty easy. Like all of a sudden, I don't know.
I suppose like the uncovering of the information was easy, but it was hard for him in a lot of other ways. The
So
fact
he
that
certainly
he's
had a struggle.
like physical limitations of like being trapped in the house and being drugged up and not feeling well, and yeah, he had other obstacles.
And yeah, I guess as shocking as the twist was, it kind of felt, I guess, unearned. Like it was just it was just like the victim as readers of just like blatant misdirection. In that, like, the parents are so good and so kind and so reasonable throughout, and then all of a sudden they're the enemy.
No,
Like,
I don't know.
It didn't strike me as it didn't ring true for me.
They had a little bit of the parents arguing off screen, or like
But
him eavesdropping on his parents, and
like nothing would indicate that they had any intentions other than what was initially.
I don't think they could have.
stated.
I don't think they could have foreshadowed that much without totally spoiling it.
Yeah,
I think it was just the right amount of surprising. Because I definitely know what you mean. There are movies where it pisses me off because the twist is something that there's no way you could ever expect.
Right,
or even just little things like the National Treasure movies, I feel like, do this. And this is also sort of
sure that I've seen this.
Speaks to what I was saying about the puzzle elements.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of like little puzzly things when they're going through these like temple places or whatever, and they have to figure out how to unlock the door. They'll just have some ridiculous solution that Nicolas Cage figures out, and you're supposed to think, oh, he's so clever and smart, but really, like, it's not at all satisfying when there's no way you could have figured that out as the audience or even as Nicolas Cage. It was just like convenient that he happened to think of it because he's the cool hero.
Well, to be fair, anything is possible if you're Nicolas Cage. I would imagine, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he is inhabited by some kind of a demon, right?
Yeah,
they could make.
I was trying to think of something clever.
They could make like a sequel to this movie where he plays Eli all grown up.
Well, I mean, this was written with the possibility of a sequel, right? I feel like
sort of.
Or it was written in an open-ended way where there could be a sequel,
Yeah.
and I almost feel like the sequel is the more interesting story.
Really?
Like what comes next? Like that's when the stakes are highest.
Then it's going to become like this huge scale
I'm not
apocalyptic kind of story, which I don't care as much about.
Yeah.
I liked how intimate this one was.
Sure, and I think I do think that's praiseworthy. You could definitely see this getting made, right?
Yeah.
I can see this very clearly as a movie.
Yeah.
Why did the parents... How did the parents get in this situation? They weren't supposed to have a kid because the doctors told them that like it'd be born with some genetic defect. And they said, nah, we really want to have a kid. Adoption's not a possibility for us.
I thought they explained it pretty clearly. Like they made a deal with
the
the devil.
Why'd they pray to the devil? Or
because he can get shit done.
God doesn't get shit done?
God was the one telling them you shouldn't have a kid. If you do, it's going to be messed up. So they had to turn somewhere else.
No, science told them that.
Science and God. I don't know.
Okay. It's just like, if I were the type of person to pray, I don't think I would start with the devil.
But you're told in, church, you can't pray for things like that. You can't just pray to get things that you want. But you can if you pray to the devil.
Can you? I mean, it's not like the parents were trying to kill the kid, or they were trying to save the kid, really.
At first, yeah.
And then once it was like 3 strikes with the holy water and they struck out, then the last one was just to like burn him alive, right?
Yeah, basically.
But it's not like they were pouring the acid on him themselves,
right,
or like gouging their son's eyes out or something else similarly messed up.
Oh my gosh, I love the part though. This is when he's like realized what he is, and he breaks free of like the straps. They have him strapped down to the table, and the doctor's trying to give him his last shot that will kill him. He breaks out and he grabs the doctor by the neck, and then like his parents come running in and they're like, Eli, you don't have to do this. And he like just stares right at them. He's like, but I want to.
Yeah.
And he snaps her neck and just drops her on the ground. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that was so great.
For sure.
Ridiculous, but great.
It
reminds me a little bit of like Drag Me to Hell, which I also really love.
Actually, I thought about that too, and maybe it's just because I watched that with you.
That movie
and you liked
has...
it a lot more than I did.
Did you not like it? I don't remember.
No, I liked it.
Okay.
But you really liked it.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And it has a really crazy ending too, which I wouldn't even qualify it as a twist exactly. It's just like, beyond a certain point, it's not a twist anymore. If it comes in like the very last scene, it's just more of like an FU to the audience, which that movie, Drag Me to Hell, has something like that. I don't think it qualifies as a twist, but it's definitely a surprise.
Remember, to be honest.
Surprise ending. Should I spoil it?
No.
Okay.
Then,
but you should just see that. You should see that movie because it's hilarious.
But that one was also kind of made as a horror comedy too.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
This, not so much.
No, not really. But it doesn't surprise me that this guy has also written a horror comedy, because clearly he's having fun with it.
Well, what I think it does well is that it, I guess, embraces the like certain well-known conventions of the genre. Like that house being like set apart from everything else recalls like the Amity.
The Amityville Horror?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And like a whole host of other haunted house type movies, right?
Sure,
and there's like the exorcism bent to it.
Yeah.
I guess like an evil doctor and the kid. Like it hits a lot of familiar genre things.
Yeah, what would otherwise be cliche, sort of.
Yeah, but
notes.
It doesn't do it in a cliche way.
Yeah.
I don't think. You can find us on Facebook.
Oh, just
at
seamless transition.
You like that? Facebook.com/OSPodcast. Our website is OSPodcast.com. Email info@OSPodcast.com. We're at on Twitter at OSPodcast, and we're on YouTube. You like that?
Yeah, you didn't seem especially enthusiastic about it.
Well, I'm not. Well, I never really say it with a lot of joy.
I guess.
But I thought that was a really just abrupt, quick.
That's what you got to do. You got to trick them into hearing it.
Maybe it was like a jump scare type maneuver. Like they're just listening to the podcast, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
All of our stuff.
Very scary.
Yeah.
But okay, verdicts?
So I would pass on the screenplay, but I would...
What?
Well, you can't be surprised, right?
I thought you'd at least consider... I knew you weren't going to recommend it, but like you said that, it kept your interest and you were, engaged as you read it.
I would pass on the screenplay. Like, if this were a movie in theaters tomorrow, I probably wouldn't go see it. But I consider the writer. I like how he kind of toyed with the conventions of the genre. It's clearly written.
Okay.
It's concise, and he's a good writer, I guess.
I'm definitely recommending the script. I think I'm going to recommend the writer too.
Go for it.
I was so pumped at the end of reading this script.
Were you?
Maybe it just hits like a sweet spot with me, but I love this kind of stuff. Just like Drag Me to Hell. It's just completely shameless, crazy. It just embraces the crazy.
Sure.
And I would totally see this if this came out tomorrow.
There you go.
Yeah, I was like really enjoying myself while reading it.
Let me put it this way: if you went to go see it and you said, "Hey, Stephen, do you want to go see it?" I'd go see it with you.
Well, that's very nice of you. Okay, next week we're going to read a script called Shadow Company, written by Shane Black and Fred Decker. Shane Black is something of a legendary screenwriter. We'll talk more about him next time. And I don't exactly have a log line for this, but again, hopefully by next week we will. All I know right now is it is a supernatural thriller set during the Vietnam War, which was almost going to be made by John Carpenter.
Cool.